Well, tensions between the United States and Russia have dramatically escalated, and now a Russian official is talking about the possibility of World War III. And Doug Luzader has more now on this ominous war of words from Washington. Doug, this is just troubling. What is the reaction in Washington?
Well, the idea of getting Russia to the negotiating table just seems like it's not likely to happen at this point. This is something that the White House has been talking about. President Trump is clearly frustrated at Russian President Vladimir Putin, and now we've had this exchange on social media. It's not clear what the next steps here are going to be, but there's a lot of pressure coming from Congress for the administration to do more in terms of sanctions against Russia. There's a report in the Kyiv Post now that President Trump is considering lifting some of the range restrictions on weapons that we have sent to Ukraine. I mean, those come with certain restrictions on them as far as, firing deep into Russian territory. If the U.S. were to lift those restrictions, it would give Ukraine a lot more flexibility to go after Russian targets. So this is not something that Russia would want to see. We don't know if this is going to happen, but again, there is this report that it's among the options the White House is considering.
President Trump says the United States is moving 2 nuclear submarines closer to Russia in a response to what he calls provocative statements by their former president, Dmitry Medvedev. Here now on the rising threat level, retired 4-star general and Fox News senior strategic analyst Jack Keane. General, welcome.
Glad to be here.
So it is not often that we speak about the movement of our nuclear subs. How significant of a threat is this, or a warning is this to Russia?
Yeah, well, I think you got to look at that in the context of what does Russia do here? I mean, Putin and Medvedev, who's his vice chairman, deputy for the Security Council, and he was a stand-in president for Putin back from 2008 to 2012. All during the entire length of this war, now in the 41, 42 months of the war, periodically the both of them have threatened and intimidated the use of nuclear weapons. And that has had quite an effect on the Biden administration. They slowed down much-needed weapons that the Ukrainians were asking for, offensive weapons, long-range tanks, the F-16s. By the way, the Europeans got onto this and saw it as a hollow threat, and they forced the deployment of those weapon systems by the United States because they were willing to provide them themselves. President Trump sees through this. This is less about military escalation, and it's more about him messaging to them is, look it, you're not going to intimidate me and coerce me with this provocative language. And that, I believe, is the message here. And certainly his actions also speak louder than words. One is moving submarines. 2, he's made a decision to decisively assist Ukraine in providing arms to them. And in a few days, he's threatened the use of some pretty high tariffs and also some sanctions on them. So that's the messaging by the president here. I am not President Joe Biden. You're not going to intimidate me. It's not going to undermine what I believe is the right thing to do here. That is the message.
Do you expect that show of force will lower tensions between the U.S. and Russia?
No. I think where we are right now is Putin is steadfast about wanting to still take control of Ukraine. He's going to stay at that as long as he possibly can. And until he sees the battlefield effects of the increased weapons that are moving in that direction and also the economic sanctions and repression that will occur of that, he'll stay on this path. But there is an opportunity, based on the pressure that President Trump is providing, to get him to come back to the negotiating table. We'll see if that takes place or not. Obviously, we don't know. This is a lot has to do with where Putin is. But he has real pressure on him, both military and economically coming, and that is going to have some impact on his decision-making.
Dr. Rebecca Grant, national security and military analyst, joins us now. Dr. Grant, you know about, the president sending a couple of nuclear submarines. We presume that means nuclear-armed submarines because all of the subs that we have are nuclear-powered. But he sent them, he says, into new positions, presumably closer to Russia. What's the reason for this, and what do you make of his response?
Wow, and this is a highly unusual comment to make. You know, what we think this means is he's taken 2 of our Ohio-class boomers that carry the nuclear weapons. Now, they patrol all the time, but for maximum deterrence due to the range of their missiles, they move into launch boxes. And that would be a really clear signal to Putin that U.S. nuclear deterrence and the triad is still very strong. You know, I'm glad Trump spoke up, but we haven't had a president say anything like this in more than 30 years. And I think also Trump may have seen some military intelligence indicating that this was a good time to make this move. Remember, Putin has been full of nuclear threats. There are also Chinese and Russian naval exercises going on right now in the Sea of Japan. So this comment on the boomers really slams the door on Putin's nuclear threats.
So this is a response to the Russians and the Chinese as well?
Yes, I think so. And of course, all connected to Ukraine. But, you know, this goes way beyond Ukraine. Putin has modernized and expanded his nuclear force. They just launched a new nuclear sub of their own. China has one of its submarines participating in these naval exercises, and China's building up their nuclear forces. So, you know, Putin in a way here is heading towards a new Cold War. And in that case, we need to make sure our U.S. triad is really strong. We've got our Ohio class, of course, Columbia class being built now to replace those in the 2030s. But it's a serious situation for sure with Putin.